Day 4 of Bahrain pre-season testing. And for the first time in 2026, we have a proper headline. Mercedes versus McLaren, decided by 100th of a second. George Russell put Mercedes on top with the fastest lap of the test so far. But behind that tiny gap to Oscar Piastri, 4 teams ran into real technical problems: Ferrari, Red Bull, Aston Martin and Cadillac. Let's break down who should feel calm tonight and who goes to bed worried after the opening day of Week 2 in Sakhir.
Mercedes were already looking solid in Week 1, with Kimi Antonelli setting the benchmark at 1 minute 33.669 on C3 tyres. Today, George Russell went 0.2 faster. His 1 minute 33.459, again on C3 rubber, is now the fastest lap of the entire test so far. Crucially, he did it in the afternoon, when the track tends to be representative for both qualifying sims and race runs, and he backed it up with 76 laps in total. That is not a glory run, that is a very healthy day of work. But Mercedes were not alone. McLaren also stepped up. Oscar Piastri found an entire 1 second compared to his own pace from last week, clocking a 1 minute 33.469, also on the C3 compound. For a long time, the Australian sat at the top of the timing screens, before Russell's late push pipped him by just 0.01 seconds. Behind them, Lando Norris slotted into 4th with a 1 minute 34.052 and 54 laps. So at the end of day 4, the message at the very front is simple. Mercedes and McLaren look calm, both have clear single-lap pace, both are building up decent mileage, and the gap between them is almost nothing.
Ferrari's day 4 is harder to read. On the positive side, Charles Leclerc set the morning benchmark with a 1 minute 33.739 on prototype tyres. That is Ferrari's quickest lap of the test so far, and he delivered it with a solid 70 laps. But the afternoon told a different story. Lewis Hamilton managed just 44 laps. He spent roughly 90 minutes in the garage with what the team called an unspecified issue. Hamilton's best time, a 1 minute 34.299, put him only 7th overall on the day. So Ferrari do have a headline time from Leclerc, but they also have a car that lost an hour and a half of running, a 7-time world champion short on laps, and still no public explanation of exactly what went wrong. Calm? Not quite, but not a disaster either. More like a red flag on reliability to keep an eye on.
On paper, P6 for Isack Hadjar does not look alarming. He set a 1 minute 34.260 on Red Bull Ford Power, and he was the only driver to complete the whole day in the same car. But dig into the lap count and the picture changes. Hadjar managed just 66 laps, which is meager by current standards, and his morning was almost a write-off, only 13 laps because of a technical issue related to the engine's coolant circuits. So Red Bull did not show their hand on outright pace, and they lost a big chunk of mileage to a cooling-related problem. In isolation, that is not panic territory, but in a compressed test like this, any lost long-run data hurts, especially with a new engine package on the car. While Mercedes, McLaren and Ferrari traded times near the front, the midfield got a reminder of how big the gap still is. The 5th fastest team today was Williams, with Carlos Sainz clocking a 1 minute 35.113. That is 1.654 seconds slower than Piastri's McLaren at the top. Behind Williams, the story is very familiar. Alpine, with Franco Colapinto, sat 1.795 seconds off the pace, with a 1 minute 35.254. Audi, with Gabriel Bortoleto, were 1.804 away from the front, with 1 minute 35.263.
Racing Bulls, through Liam Lawson, ended up 2.294 seconds adrift on 1 minute 35.753. So while young drivers collected laps, Colapinto with 60, Bortoleto with 71, Lawson with 61, the raw pace gap to the front three teams is still very much there.
Then we get to the teams who really did not have a smooth day. Aston Martin's AMR26 suffered a power unit issue that kept the car in the garage for around 4 hours, roughly from midday to 4 p.m. local time. When Lance Stroll finally rolled out to start the afternoon program, things got worse. He spun into the gravel at turn 10, triggering a red flag. From the outside, it looked more like a technical fault than a simple driver error. Aston then lost another hour and a half recovering and checking the car. By the end of the day, the AMR26 had completed just 54 laps in total, split between Stroll and Fernando Alonso. On the plus side, there was at least some performance gain. Aston improved by more than 2 seconds compared to last week, going from 1 minute 38.165 to 1 minute 35.974 today. So the pace delta is encouraging, but reliability is very clearly a concern. If Aston had a messy day, Cadillac had a borderline terrible one. Their as yet unnamed car spent most of both the morning and afternoon sessions in the garage. The team lost around 3 hours in total, with the morning delay linked to sensor issues. In the end, Sergio Perez completed just 24 laps, Valtteri Bottas did 35, and neither driver set a truly meaningful lap time. Bottas's best was 1 minute 36.798, Perez's only 1 minute 38.191. In other words, Cadillac leave day 4 with little mileage, no real performance reference, and a long to-do list before the cars go racing. In the remaining teams, Haas had a less dramatic but still mixed day. Oliver Behrman set a 1 minute 35.778 with 42 laps. Esteban Ocon did 1 minute 36.148 across 65 laps. Not disastrous, but nothing that screams surprise package either. Audi, Alpine, Racing Bulls all logged laps and sit within that 1.8 to 3.3 seconds window behind the leaders. At the very end of the day, Formula One also addressed one of the big 2026 question marks, the new start procedure. A start sequence was simulated with all 10 cars on the grid, lights out, and none of them stalled. A small but important tick for the new generation of machinery.
So, after day 4 of Bahrain testing, Mercedes can sleep pretty well. Russell has the fastest lap of the test, Antonelli's week 1 time still looks strong, and the mileage is solid. McLaren are right there with them, just 0.01 seconds away, and Piastri clearly finding more performance. Ferrari have a quick lap from Leclerc, but will be worried about Hamilton's lack of running. Red Bull stay low profile on pace, but any coolant-related issue on a new engine is one to watch. Aston Martin and Cadillac face the biggest reliability headaches, with hours lost in the garage and too few laps to draw real conclusions. If you want more clear breakdowns of every single testing day in Bahrain, leave a like, tell me in the comments who impressed you the most today and who should be worried, and follow or subscribe to Apex Racing Desk so you do not miss tomorrow's analysis.